So first off, just thank you for sitting down with us.
Sure.
So first off, you've known this whole time that you were innocent, that you didn't do this. For 2 years, police, prosecutors, this student have been saying that you did. Now the public knows that you didn't. How do you feel?
I feel lighter than air after everything, after the acquittal. I mean, it's been a nightmare. It's like the weight of everything and just seeing people and wondering what they were thinking about me when I had such a reputation that was different than the accusations. It's been terrible, but it is good now that we're starting to make headway.
And just take us back to that, that day in August when everything happened. Just what was going through your mind?
I was trying to help. I was raised to trust police and trust the system. And so when they were asking me questions, I was trying to be as helpful as I could, offering solutions that might satisfy their questions. It wasn't until midway through the interview that I realized that they were questioning me with the intent to prosecute. It was unbelievable.
Were you shocked to hear that someone was accusing you of doing something like this?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I guess do you try and rationalize why someone would do something like that to you?
I mean, the question plagues you, obviously, when you're a great teacher and you try to be a good mentor and a good person. And of course, it racks your brain, but to try to come up with a solution that's literally crazy is impossible,
And just, you kind of said it already, but just how has your life changed since all this has happened?
Oh, I mean, I lost my career, all my education, everything that I put into. I mean, I had a very specific career path that I was on and was being very successful at, and all that's gone. I had to do laborious jobs after this to try to support my family. I had a motorcycle at the time that I only rode when I wanted to. I had to ride it every day and got in a motorcycle accident and shattered my wrist. I have pins now that I'll live with forever. And I had a job where I was able to use my intellect before this, and that was all taken from me.
Did you get a lot of support, or did you really kind of see who your true friends were?
I didn't lose a single friend throughout all of this. Every single person I knew, acquaintances that I'd only know for a short amount of times immediately come up to me and were like, "This is ridiculous. I don't believe it for a second." And then the further we got into the evidence, it could actually show that it was impossible and didn't happen. The support became even greater. I kept waiting for them to figure out, the truth. I kept hoping and praying. I'm like, they've got to see it now. They've got to understand this now. And I couldn't believe it even when I was in trial that I was still sitting there.
Mm-hmm. I guess not so much talking about, why the student may have made it up, but why do you think that the prosecution just took this so far, knowing that, one of the alleged victims apparently, said that she made it up on social media. Why do you think they took this so far?
That's a great question, and I would love to have it answered. I know this is a hot topic these days with the Me Too movement and things like that, and there's lots of allegations coming out left and right that people have done certain things, and so I feel like there's a lot of politics involved, a lot of bureaucracy involved. Justice seemed to be the last thing on the list, though. I waved bye to an apology from the school district a long time ago because they told me in their office after I was released from jail that I could either resign now or they would fire me publicly at the school board meeting. And so I knew exactly what their intentions were from the beginning. And that was heartbreaking because I worked hard for that school district and gave a lot of time and a lot of effort into that school system and saw nothing for it.
And just tell me a little about your passion for teaching, why you wanted to get into this.
I mean, I love teaching, and I have a passion for learning. I love learning things. My family and friends would attest to it that when I go to do something new, I learn everything I can about it as soon as I can. And because I have such a passion for learning, I knew I could instill that in my students. I tried to make every single lesson fun, engaging, something that would be memorable, not only for the experience, but before the content. And that was not easy. That was something that took hours and hours and hours of trying to perfect my craft. And it's all for nothing now.
And you kind of mentioned, you said that you didn't lose a single friend. Did you even really feel like you had to defend yourself in a sense in terms of just the people who knew you before this, or?
I wouldn't say defend myself. I mean, people had the same questions I did, why is this happening? And I'd be like, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. But everyone was supportive. I mean, they know my character. I'm the type of person who, if you're rebuilding your bathroom, you can call me and I'll come and help you and not expect anything from it. In fact, the day I was arrested, I was across the hall helping a teacher paint his classroom because he was behind that week. And he didn't even know I was going to do it. I showed up with my own paint supplies. And I was like, hey man, let's paint your classroom. Let's get it ready. Parents are coming tomorrow. And then that's when the police came and asked to speak to me. I had a cut off t-shirt and paint all over me.
Any lesson that can be learned from just all that's happened here?
Oh, sure. I mean, you look back now, being a teacher who's gone through this, like all of the things that you put yourself in jeopardy by like using your personal cell phone for like a teaching aid, and like kids were allowed to interact with you in such a way that you had no protection. And, I was just discussing with an old colleague of mine. I said, if I were to go back to teaching, I'd want a body cam. I would want to be protected over this. And that probably wouldn't even be allowed.
I guess any lesson for the public to learn just from everything that's happened here?
Absolutely. Like I said in the beginning, I was raised and brought up to trust police. I will not trust a single police officer the rest of my life. Like, this was such an eye-opening experience that the truth was not looked for. They thought I was guilty and did nothing to try to decide one way or the other. Like, I will never, ever talk to a police officer again, ever.
Just tell me about kind of your relationship with your students and what it was like. How would they describe you as a teacher?
I mean, I was described a lot by my students as being the most fun teacher they ever had. The one that they would remember. My wife and I actually went to the movie theaters once, and the kid who was serving popcorn asked me, he said, "Aren't you Mr. Hull?" And I was like, yeah, and I had never taught this student before, at least I thought I hadn't, and he was like, man, I hear about you all the time, everybody thinks you're amazing, I saw a video of you doing a backflip in class, like, that's awesome, I wish I had you as a teacher. And that was the most heartwarming compliment I could get, is that somebody wished they could have me as a teacher. And that's what I wanted for my students and for my practice. And I thought I had that. And
you probably kind of answered this question already, but just, you've been doing this for almost 2 years now, you haven't had a chance to talk publicly about it, and you've had time to think about it. Is there anything you just really have been dying to let people know, or is there anything you just really wanted to people know that maybe we don't know that you want people to know?
I mean, sure. I mean, it came out in trial that the police did nothing. I mean, like, literally nothing. They asked me questions and arrested me, and that was the extent of it. I mean, they did less than that. They talked to another teacher in school. I mean, other teachers saw her get sworn in. And that was never even in the report. I mean, like, that to me should be illegal. I don't understand how this can happen. I don't understand how, when that's your job, is to investigate, when you do the opposite of that. Like, you literally kept evidence out. I just feel like that's ridiculous and highly illegal. And you could have asked me 4 years ago if I thought that was possible, and I would think absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Just, what impact has this had on your family? I know, your wife was just talking about it. Just tell me about, what was the toughest moment, and how did you guys get through that?
I mean, the toughest moments, I'm sure for me, and I think my wife could attest, was just the time that I was in jail, unjustifiably so. I was kept in solitary confinement. There was an attempt on my life while I was there. Nobody gets to know about that, I mean, except for maybe now. And my wife, I was on the phone with my wife when she could hear the people screaming, "I'm going to kill you, school teacher." And I said to her, I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I love you with all my heart, but I don't know how this is going to end.
What got you through that moment?
I'm a pretty perseverant person. Most people would probably tell you that I did it easier than what they could have done it. And everything I've told them, my friends and family, I said, when you're put in this situation, you have a choice. It's either to rise above it or not. And it seemed like when you love your family and you want to be there for them and you want to be their protector and their confidant, that you just can't give up. And so I just didn't. I would hope that from, and maybe just society in general, that they would realize that, the way TV and movies portray things isn't the way it is. Like, you can be arrested just because someone said you did something. And that's literally it. There doesn't have to be any other piece of hard proof evidence. In my case specifically, there was evidence to negate that statement. And that didn't matter. And like, even me, before this happened, I would have never believed that you could just be arrested because someone said you did something. And I think that is a scary, scary thought. And I hope people realize that, and maybe will take even further steps to protect themselves, because everybody's vulnerable. You think you're not just because you're a good person. That's not true at all.
When you heard the verdict, going in that day, did you think it was going to go the other way? What were you thinking?
I never thought it was going to go the other way. I told my wife, we have the truth on our side. It's got to work out. Like you just have to have faith that it will. Of course, I'm intelligent, so I still prepared in the instance that it wouldn't. I told my parents what I wanted to have happen with Michelle, and I wanted to make sure she was taken care of. And I told my friends, we're in the middle of some home projects that I needed those finished if I wasn't there. But a good friend of mine, a teacher, a colleague of mine, gave me a hug right before I went in there, and he said, "I'll see you in 10 minutes." And he did.
Do you hope to go back to teaching?
No.
Tell me about that decision. I'm sure you've thought about it. Was it an easy decision to make?
No, it's heartbreaking. Like I miss teaching every single day, but I don't miss the jeopardy that you're in by being put in that situation. I mean, you don't get to pick the kids who are in your class. Even if you suspected that they might say something that's not true, you don't have control over that. Like you're a very, very vulnerable person. And another thing that was like a hallmark of my teaching, and I developed it pretty early on, and I'm sure most teachers had it, but I gave every single student a brand new start every single day. Even kids who I thought were like, these are my problem students, today might be the day that they change their whole lives. And I gave them that opportunity. But I won't give that to anybody else. That trust is gone. It seems naive now to even think that that was a possibility.
Do you feel like a little bit of your spirit has just been permanently broken?
Oh, absolutely. My wife and I we were walking through a mall one time, and another gentleman was walking towards me, and we met eyes, and I nodded at him, and he nodded back, and my wife said to me, "Did you know him?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Then why'd you nod?" And I was like, "'Cause he's another human being walking by me," and I nodded to him, and she was like, "I just don't think, people are good like that you can just automatically think you can just talk to anybody." And I told her, I was like, "I completely disagree. I think people are innately good." And again, like, I was very naive.